I've had a lot of people ask me lately, what is school going to look like this fall? It's been hard to answer that question because it is something so important, and it's something that is so complex because it involves our children and because it involves our educators and because there probably is no one perfect answer. And so I want to make sure that I have an opportunity to hear from you and to hear from those who are the most affected by the decision. And so over the course of the next few weeks, we want to talk about those issues that are so important as we think about the return to school. And we want to make sure that we get all of the perspectives that are out there and that we have an opportunity to start addressing those questions. And together we're going to work on the solution. Well, Venus, thanks for sitting down and talking with me today. Over the next few weeks, we want to be able to share with educators, with parents, with students, with the community, just some plans for going forward. We want to talk a little bit about where we are with education right now, what the address some of the questions and concerns that we know are out there. Okay. And so you're really the first person that we're starting this conversation with. And I think that you're the very best person to start with because you've kind of played a dual role. You are a team member at the Department of Education, and you're also a parent of 2 public school students in Arkansas right now.
Yes.
And so let's start out for just a minute with you as part of the Division of Elementary and Secondary Education, and how has your role changed, your everyday work life? How has that changed over the past few months?
Completely different from before. I have gone from being around my coworkers every day and being able to just bounce ideas off of them whenever I wanted to working in isolation at home and trying to figure things out on my own. Also learning technology that I haven't had to use before, and juggling my kids doing work, their schoolwork at home, and my husband working at home as well. So it has been quite a challenge. We had a huge project with the virtual career fair that we recently hosted, and just trying to put on something like that we've never done before. From my home office was a bit of a challenge. So,
okay. So you definitely have been taking some of the experiences that you've learned from using technology, connecting with people in different ways. So you've taken those experiences, and then you also were doing this at the same time you were experiencing being a parent, being at home with your students during their extended AMI.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about did that help you in any way? Did it cause more frustration in the house? And just tell us a little bit about your experiences as a parent during the remote learning.
I think the hardest part was when we were all busy at the same time. And my husband would be in his office, I would be in my office, and the kids would be on a Zoom. So everybody's Zooming at the same time in the house, and that was an issue with our Wi-Fi, our connectivity. Sometimes we had some issues with that. My kids, thankfully, could do their work without a lot of help from me. So my main thing was to make sure that they were actually doing it, since they were so relaxed because they were at home. They didn't have the structure that they would have at school. That was probably the hardest part, was making sure that both of them were actually doing their work and not, surfing the net or playing games.
Sure. And I remember talking to people at schools, and they were trying to balance the thought of, okay, we know that remote learning can't replicate what we're doing on site,
right?
And but we also want to make sure that we're providing as robust of a learning experience as we possibly can for students. So what advice would you give to schools when they're thinking about the possibility of maybe having to do at least some type of learning opportunities that may take place at home, whether it's for small groups of students or larger groups of students? How do you really balance that and Did you appreciate having that flexibility as a parent, or would you have suggested more structure?
I appreciated the flexibility. I would say to schools to just make sure that you are taking into account the variety of students that you have. Everybody's situation at home is different. You have some homes where the parents are really hands-on and can be really helpful, and then you have some where the parents are at work and the kids are at home by themselves. So all of that has to be taken into account when you're delivering these methods of learning that we haven't used before.
Let's talk a little bit about the return to on-site instruction and your thoughts as a parent, your thoughts not only of just your students returning to the on-site environment, but also the thought of you as a working parent, and what's going through your mind right now?
The first thing that comes to my mind is the safety of my children. And everybody's children. We want them to be healthy and in a safe environment. That's the first thing. Secondly, there are so many options being thrown around. We had to fill out a survey. We were asked to fill out a survey on returning to school. And so the options were your students coming to school half a day and learning at home half a day, or coming to school every other day, or I think one of the other options was coming every other week. And so my thought was, this will be a little bit of a challenge for me because I don't work half a day and I don't work every other day, and I certainly don't work every other week. So there's a lot to take into consideration, and right now we just don't know.
Based on what you've experienced so far, if you could give your school's advice, just as a parent, and you could say, this is what you could really do to help us as parents, what would be the advice you would give to your schools?
I would ask my schools to please show your parents some grace and your students some grace, and we will do the same. We are in unknown territory right now. No one knows what's going to happen. It changes from day to day. So I would just say, just be patient with us. We'll be patient with you. Continue to be flexible. Give us those options, and recognize that not everyone's situation will be the same. So what works for me may not work for another parent, but be willing to help us all.
Thinking about you as a ADE team member, what advice would you give to us and your other team members in terms of how do we make sure that we still do the very best job in providing leadership, support, and service to schools, to communities, and also to our team members? What advice would you have for the Department of Education?
My advice would be to continue to listen to the voices of the people who are putting these guides together. Have a really good amount of opinions and experiences that are coming to the table to help provide these resources to the school districts. Everybody's going to have a different viewpoint. What one person didn't think about, someone else will. And I think that's how you really can put together comprehensive guidelines for our school districts that cover all bases, by having a lot of people to contribute who have different experiences. I would say keep doing that.